All right, Leo. So we are live.
Are we
Uh,
live now?
yeah, we are live on Facebook, and we wanted to do something special today, man. I know we usually don't record this time of the day, this middle of the like late Sunday night. We used to do that back in the day, but we wanted to do something special. We wanted to, really help out a lot of our audience, right? Who, our audience really consists of a lot of small business owners, side hustlers, a lot of people who are part of the gig economy, freelancers, whatever you're doing, whether you're,
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
whatever. And so we want to help them out.
I love this part. This is gonna be so good because you have both ends of the spectrum. You have you who translate this information so quickly, and then me is like I've never been through this like relief options, grants, like understanding this. Uh, so I think there are a lot of people in the same boat as I, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for everybody, man. Even for
Yeah.
me, my first time going through this, so it's
Yeah.
when I turn to legal advice, I have to call you immediately, right?
Yeah. So just to give people clarity what we're doing today, especially if you're listening in, we're going to go through understanding the SBA small business loans that have been passed now through the CARES Act about a week ago. And, there's a lot of loans and things available to help out small businesses. And I think the focus heavily has been on, restaurants, businesses with employees and stuff. But I think a big part of the conversation has been left out is, people that work in the gig economy, right? And that's many of our listeners. A lot of also entrepreneurs who maybe don't have employees. Like, do you qualify? What do you do? What does it mean? What should you apply for? So we want to dissect this whole thing, but you'll see we're trying to condense it specifically and narrow it down to those group of people. And I think that's what we're going to do through this PowerPoint presentation. And we're going to field some questions from you. And generally, I'm trying to make sure that we answer everything, man, so we can help everyone out.
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions and I cannot wait to see the slides. I mean, I skimmed through it, but let's hear what you have to say.
Sure. So I guess like to start off, who is this presentation really for? And it's basically for two kinds of people. One is sole proprietors, and the other is independent contractors. People are probably asking, what's a sole proprietor? So if you have registered your business, like you have an LLC or you register your business with your state, but you don't have any employees, like you just don't. A lot of people, like businesses, have an LLC. You have one. Flickr. I had as for a really long time, many other businesses I registered. I don't have any employees, right? So basically, if you don't have any employees, or you are a single member LLC, which means that you don't have any other people that are part who own a stake in your business. So just like the green solution is, it's just you, or
Mhm.
Azeth for a long time was just me. And so what that means is that you're categorized as a sole proprietor. So that's a big chunk of our audience, I think, that's listening in, has registered their business. They're kind of doing it solo. Or also, we're going to cover independent contractors. So freelancers, people who work in the gig economy, anyone that gets a 1099. So, I know you do that a lot of times. You have some
Right.
gigs that you do. I've done quite a bit of gigs. I have independent contractors that work for me. So these are the types of people who we're going to cover on this slideshow. And that's how we're going to refer to them, as people, again, who have a business but don't have employees, or just are solo, don't have other founders, or if you're an independent contractor. Those are the two
Yeah,
types of people we're going to cover.
absolutely. I like how it's very narrowed. It's very to the point.
It has to be, man, because there's so much confusion, and I think if you try to cover everyone, it gets too confusing. So we want to really narrow down and to just go after the EM audience. And there isn't much information on this, so I'm glad we're able to do this. So it took me a while to collect all this information from various sources and put it out here. So
I wonder how long it took you to did you spend the night to do it?
yeah, I've been spending since the first time the CARES Act was mentioned. I've been following very, very closely. And it's funny because they've changed even the online application, like overnight, things changed. Like they
Oh
were
yeah.
asking for more paperwork, and the next night it was another. And then they said it was like the interest rate is going to be 0.5%, and then switch to 1. Like literally everything's
Oh,
changing on the go. So it took a
I
lot
heard
of conversation with
I
people.
heard it's a first come first serve basis. So that's why when you called me, I was
Yes.
like I immediately signed in. I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I can do both.
Yeah. No, it is a first come first serve basis. We will talk about that in the next few slides, and that's why we wanted to do it on a Sunday night, get it out to you guys as soon as possible. Um, so the question is, well, what's available to you? So now the coronavirus happened. It's a very unfortunate event. A lot of people are going to be in dire straits economically. You want to think about, well, what's available to you? Like, first of all, you need to know all your options, right? So one of them is the economic injury disaster loan. This is the loan that a lot of people have been talking about. That's online, that you fill out online. That's EIDL. The second one is the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. And then the third one you can get is also unemployment benefits. And so I'm going to cover 1 and 2 more because the 3 is basically by our state and it's a little bit different, but they're not all the same. So I want people to understand what they're signing up for, what they're getting into, and why should they use one or the other, or should they sign up for both? You know, what's the process like, especially for independent contractors and solo business owners?
Gotcha.
So I'll start first with the PPP because this has been pretty heavily covered in the media, and this is going to be on the first come first serve basis, and it's going to be available if you're watching today. It's Sunday, starting tomorrow on Monday is going to be available. So the first week of April, April 6th. And what is it for? What is PPP for? Well, as the name applies, what it really is for is to cover payroll, right? So you want to protect payroll, your wages. Now, it's created to cover your own salary and health insurance premium. So what does that mean? Well, if you're, again, we're covering independent contractors or solo business owners. So you don't have employees. So does this cover you? The answer is yes, it does. Many people that are probably listening have a business, an LLC, and they pay themselves a W-2. So you're covered. Or if you have a business and basically you are making X amount of profit, you're also covered. If you're an independent contractor, you're also covered. Now we'll get into like what's covered and how you calculate how much you're going to be eligible for. But the payout is basically a monthly average salary times 2.5. That's really what it is. So this is, again, to cover wages for lots of people.
I had a question. So it's based on 2018 tax return or 2019 or both?
Yeah, well, it's going to be 2019. You probably haven't filed it yet, so they're going to look at your books. 2018 is probably up for grabs as well. So your bank's going to tell you what they need, but that's what they're going to look for. So now, you know, and so what's really cool about this loan and why it's really helpful and what differs from the EIDL, which I'm going to cover soon, is that it's going to be totally forgivable. Like 100% of it that you're going to get, all of it's going to be forgiven. You just have to meet certain stipulations. Again, this is a loan 10K? Sorry?
Above 10K?
No, this is a different than 10K. We'll get into that. So this is a totally different loan. So basically, this is a loan that you get. It's up to 10 million you can get. What they'll do is they'll look at your payroll expenses and times per month, and then times that by 2.5. They're going to give you that money, and that money is totally basically forgiven. Like you don't have to pay it back. So,
well, I mean, for example, me, like I didn't make like $1 million last year, but does it apply for people who make millions or
no for anyone? It's up to 10 million. So I'll give everyone an example, and I'll explain the forgiveness too. So now just a few things here. Like first, your eligibility. So again, it's a loan that's totally forgiven up to $10 million that you get to cover your own wages. Now, it's a business or a gig that must have been operational as of February 15, 2020. So basically not very long ago, you should have had it. So basically people can't start a business now and say, hey, like, this doesn't work. You must have filed something. So you must have filed a 1099, or you must have filed your profit earnings on your Schedule C. So everyone who's a business owner and never files, like say I never register and I'm like, I just have a business and I never register. Now, immediately you are a sole proprietor for tax purposes. And when you file your personal tax returns, there's a section C, and you're going to write there all your other business earnings you've made, and it's going to write what's your total net profit you've made that year. They're going to use that instead. For independent contractors, they're going to look at what's the total profit you've made on your Schedule C. It's going to basically count it all together.
Right.
And I'm going to get to this at the end again, but here's a big caveat. You cannot receive PPP and unemployment at the same time. You kind of have to choose.
Yeah. For me, it was because for people listening, I work at it's called the Encore Casino. It's here in Everett, in Boston, and so I wasn't sure if I was going to get paid by them still. So, and I work there on the weekends, and I work part time. So I immediately applied for unemployment, but then I was informed by Encore that they are paying afterwards. So I'd have to go back and like tell them, hey, I have to figure that out. I mean, well, what's another question?
Yeah, and we'll get to that too, because like, is it possible to get both? Probably not, because the PPP covers like your payroll, your wages, so getting unemployment too. But again, it's coming from different sources. A lot of this unemployment comes from your state. PPP is federal, so there is an opportunity to really apply for both. But it's just something to keep in mind. So I know there's a lot of confusion right now. I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, and I want to explain it.
It's pretty clear.
It might be a little bit confusing. So what I wanted to do is to explain like, what are you actually entitled to? So usually you have a small business and they look at your total payroll. So say I have 3 people working for me, and every month I pay all 3 people 10 grand each, right? So that's 30,000 of the total amount that I'm paying every month, and then they times that by 2.5. And that's basically what you're going to get as a total lump sum. Now, you don't have like any you don't have any employees, you don't have anything, so what are you going to do? All right, so the big question is, if you were operation 2019, basically means you have reported on Schedule C your net profit, right? So you have an LLC, you've had some profit, and you're going to use that instead. That's it. So instead of looking at how much payroll you're paying other people, you're going to look at what amount of profit did your business make. That's pretty simple. Everyone that files taxes has a Schedule C, you know what that is, and it looks at what's the total expenses and total profit. So, and they're going to use that instead. So I'll give people an example here. So you have your monthly average payroll expense will be your annual net profit divided by 12. So say, for instance, you have a business. You basically had $300,000 you made, $200,000 in expenses. So your net profit was $100,000. Okay. So now they're like, okay, well, you made $100,000 last year. So let's divide it by 12. Okay. Whatever that figure comes out to, you times that by 2.5. And that's the total amount of you're going to get, 20,833.
Interesting.
So does that make sense? The math makes sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Again,
it's your payroll expense can also just be you, like me.
Yes, this is you. So say you don't have any employees, that's totally fine. Like, that's why we're doing this episode here, because I want to make it clear, because a lot of people are like, oh, this is just for small business, I don't have any employees. What should I do? It's like, no, don't worry about it. If you have an LLC, or if you have a business that you haven't registered, you're still reporting all your net profit on a Schedule C in your personal tax return. So what's the total net profit you made? Maybe it's 10,000 you made, or it's 100,000 you made over the year. Whatever your net profit is, divided by 12. That's going to be your monthly, and then times that by 2.5, and that's the total amount of the loan you're going to get. Very simple. And the same applies for 1099, like independent contractors. It's going to look at all the money you've made, profit you've made, and then do the exact same thing.
I'm curious how that works for like e-com. Are you also, well, I guess you're also an LLC through e-com, right? Or,
yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have an e-com business, if you're an online business, I don't know if you sell like whatever it is. If you have an LLC, you have, and you say you're a solo person, like say back in the day, I didn't have any employee, I had nothing. It was just me. I was 100% owned by me. And then I'm like, okay, I need to apply for this loan. So basically what I would do whenever I file my tax returns, because it's a single member LLC, I don't file it as a separate tax return. It's on my personal tax return. I look at my Schedule C, I say, okay, as of this year made 200 grand in net profit. I'm like, okay, 200 divided by 12. And I take that and times it by 2.5. And that's the total amount I'm going to get. So that's basically how, that's
PPP, payment protection plan.
Yep. Payment protection plan. That's what it is. This is the PPP. Now, the one cool aspect of it, again, which I wanted to touch on, is the loan forgiveness. So how does this loan forgiveness work? What is this all about itself? Well, the loan forgiveness works in the following way. You have to basically use 75% to cover payroll, and you can't fire those people for an 8-week period. Now, this doesn't apply for like if you're a business, you don't have any employees, but what it basically means is it's gonna be forgiven for you. I mean, you're not gonna fire yourself or whatever. So basically, you have to use 75% for your personal wages, just like expenses, and you can use the other part for like rent, utilities, whatever. But basically, long story short, you're gonna get the money back. It's totally forgivable. That's what they have promised everyone. That's how it's gonna be. This determination is made after 8 weeks. Your lender, your bank is going to come after and is like, hey, can I get some documentation? How did you spend the money? You're like, okay, this is how I spend the money. It went on my personal wages. Like, okay, here you go. Loan's totally forgiven. Now,
I have a question. So how does the government calculate this? Because do they say, okay, there are so many LLCs or independent contractors in the United States, and we think that 10K, if they would all qualify, would be, or a percentage of those, you know what I mean? Like, how do they calculate that 10K can be forgiven at any point? You know?
Okay, well, so I think you're confusing something. I think the 10K is a totally different loan. That's not part of the PPP.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, still the PPP would, like, even if it's not 10K, even if it's like 50K that I'm getting.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The PPP, everything you get, if you get $10 million from the PPP, it's 100% forgiven. All of it.
Savage, man. How?
Yes. Well, because they're basically saying you're going to use that money as long as you use 75% of that money to cover payroll, because they don't want people to get fired. Like, don't want that.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, you have to use it for wages. Now, some companies will get this money and will like, you know what? I really don't want to use it for wages. I want to fire some people and I want to use it for something else. I want to invest somewhere else or something. The government's like, okay, you can keep the money, but then the grant turns into a loan. So you have to pay a 1% on it and an interest, and it's deferred for 6 months. Again, 1% loan is nothing crazy. Okay. So a lot of companies might choose to use it for other things besides paying wages, you know? Now, again, you qualify based on having how many employees you have and how many wages you're going to pay, but you don't have to use it for that purpose.
Is this also forgivable up until 12 months? Or like after 12 months, you have to pay back? Or if it's like you cut off that month?
Yeah. It's deferred for a 6-month period. For 6 months, you don't have to pay anything, even if you use it for something else. And after that, you're gonna have to start paying for a certain amount of years. So, but long story short, it's a pretty good loan. And I think that some businesses hopefully will say, and this will help them. This will keep people on payroll. That's what we really want. They won't fire them. And then the other part of it is if they want to use it for other things, the government's not going to squeeze your balls for it. They're going to say, you know what, it's okay. You can use it but it's going to be a loan of 1%. That's really how does this work. Again, 100% fully forgiven, but the scope of why you can use it is very limited. It's usually meant for wages. If you want to use it for something else, it's a loan. If you don't use it for something else, just for wages, it's a grant. You get the money for free. Okay. So that's how I want people to look at that.
That's clear. Yeah.
Again, very simple. Like how can you apply? Like what is, what's all part of this? What do you do? So again, this is a loan that is not going to come it's not going to come from like a website or somewhere. You have to go to your bank. And you and I were talking about this earlier. Banks are going to get inundated with requests, like all the big banks, right? So they're going to prefer to help people that they have a relationship with. So you can go to a bank that's not yours, but if you have a relationship with a branch manager or representative, that's going to help you big time because they're going to favor their own clients over other people. So, and most banks are going to be qualified for this. There's any banks that give out SBA loans or FDIC insured. So like that's going to be most banks, but I think try to talk to your bank as soon as possible about this.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I mean, as soon as you can, just call them, say you're interested. What do you need?
I called them on Friday. Everybody's like, "Oh, sorry, we're just so slammed." Everybody was calling, but one time, so it's they're busy.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big part. It's just getting speed, and we'll talk about why speed again. Now, there's going to be different deadlines. So if you're a sole proprietor, so basically, if you are, what do you have to show? How do you do it? Well, here again, I'm going to go to the next one. Sole proprietors can start applying by April 3rd, which of course that wasn't really the official date, but that April 3rd, the application goes open. If you're an independent contractor or if you're self-employed and like basically you just have your own business and you're just paying yourself a W-2, that's April 10th. Now, yeah, so I would tell everyone apply early as possible. For independent contracts, it is April 10th, but talk to your bank like literally as soon as possible. Now, that's what I would tell people to do.
So this may be a dumb question, but what's the difference then between sole proprietor and self-employed?
Yeah, so sole proprietor is an LLC where you're the only person in the LLC.
And self-employed is
self-employed is if you are there's no other person that's making any wages besides you. You're paying yourself a W-2. So sometimes like you have a business like an LLC, and like for instance, I have a real estate company and I pay myself a W-2 to myself. I make a salary from my own business, so I'm self-employed. But in other businesses, like when I started Azeth, I was not self-employed because I was not taking money I was not taking a salary. I was a sole proprietor because I was the only person owning 100% of the business. It was a single member LLC, like Green Solutionist, but I was not paying myself. So, but again, very important. I would just try to get this out as soon as possible. Tell your bank what your situation is, and try to do that. Now, one thing you said, which is really key, there's only a certain amount of money that's allocated for this plan, and it is. This is not just like hearsay. The SBA released a final memo, like last memo, and they said, "Hey guys, it is absolutely going to be first come, first serve." So in order to get more money, so they have allocated, hundreds of billions of dollars for this. If this is exhausted, Congress has to go again and get more approval and like do the whole shit again, and that's going to take some time. So it's a first come, first serve basis. So whoever files it first and gets approved gets it, and if you're not, then you're out of luck. You only have until June 30th to submit an application. My guess is by that time, most of it's going to be exhausted. So try to do it as soon as, don't wait. If you're watching this right now, hopefully whatever you're doing right now, like call your bank tomorrow morning, get their numbers, like whatever you can do, get it. So.
I did it immediately. I have so many questions about I have my accountant, he's very generous sometimes. And, instead of saying instead of recording that I drove 5,000 miles, we'll say I drove 5,500 miles. You know what I mean? So it's like you try to, you try to maximize your return, and I don't know if it's gonna, show up at any point. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that. I'm assuming if you have a certified accountant, they're doing things all by the books. And
Right.
I don't know, like if an accountant does it, read everything and everything seems good, then you do it to your best of your abilities. Of course you're signing under, under oath and the penalties of perjury. So like you want to do your best possible. You want to be as truthful as possible, I would. And, people always sometimes ask like, should I go there with a lawyer? Should I go? It's like, guys, like, you can't, like, this is not just some form you have to think about. Like they're going to ask you, okay, you're going to say, I want to apply for this loan. They'll be like, okay, can I see your tax returns? You give them the tax returns and that's it. Like it's not a negotiation process. People's like, oh, Prady, can you come with me? I was like, what do you want me to do there?
You got it. People
Yeah,
have
because I'm not like, you think it's like a lawyer, like you have to make an argument. I was like, dude, this is not like you have to hand in a paperwork. Like what I'm going to help you. It's like me applying for like a United States passport. It's not a legal where you have to argue. You have to fill out paperwork and you have to wait in line. So just so people know. So again, there's a lot of questions around like this other types of loan. I want you to separate it. I want you to think about a loan that you have available called the PPP that's going to cover your personal wages, your salary. Think of it just as that, and know that it's going to be 100% forgivable, but you have to do this through your bank. That's one loan, one option. We're going to go to the next one, which is a different one, which is called the EIDL. Okay. Now, EIDL is made for times where there's a big disaster, like natural disasters and stuff. There's a loan. Now it's available. Now, this loan does not go to 10 million, only goes up to 2 million. It doesn't mean you have to have 2 million, up to 2 million maximum, but this one is supposed to cover working capital, not your wages. So rent, fixed debt, overhead costs, like gas, like anything that you would have paid, but you can't pay anymore because of COVID-19. So just running expenses, like stuff that's really bothering you. So for instance, you have an office space and you have to pay for rent, but now you can't pay it anymore. That's what this is for. Or you have, so like if you're affected and so the EIDL is for working capital. PPP, paycheck protection, is for your paycheck. EIDL is for working capital. Now, can you use it to cover some of your wages? Yes, potentially. But and the SBA is a little bit more flexible how you use this money. But because they're flexible, this is not a grant. You have to pay this money back. Like this is not free money. Like it's not free money. PPP, you get money and you don't have to pay it back. The EIDL, they're not going to tell you how to use it. It's usually for working capital, but you have to pay it back. Most small businesses are going to choose the PPP to cover salaries because $2 million is probably not going to be enough for a lot of businesses. They probably need more, but for the EIDL, it's $2 million just for working capital. Now, there's one big caveat, and there's one thing you kept mentioning, which is $10,000. Now, there is something called a $10,000 advance that they give you. So this EIDL, you sign up for it online. We'll provide the link later. And then you have an option, a little checkbox says, do you want to qualify for $10,000 cash advance? And what that is, it's an advance you get, just $10,000 immediately, because a lot of people are worried, like politically, is like, guys, like how long is this loan going to take to be approved and this and that? And the government said, you know what we're going to do to make everyone happy? We're going to just choose a random number, $10,000 that you're just going to get. Now you can use the $10,000 and it's totally forgiven. Now, a lot of the memos have said over and over again now, and you're going to have to see how it's implemented or not, that even if you don't like get the EIDL and you don't, so as long as you qualify for it. So, and anyone who is an independent contractor, who has their own business and is registered, is in good standing, is a U.S. citizen, whatever, the bare minimum requirements are met, you file for it. And even if you don't get the money for the EIDL, the $10,000 you're going to get no matter what. The only people who are not going to get it are people who don't qualify. Like if you don't have a business, you randomly I'm just a dude from the street, randomly sign up. Like I'm not going to get the 10 grand. But as long as you qualify, you meet the requirements to get the EIDL, you'll get it.
I'm so curious if I qualify or not, man. I mean, technically I have two LLCs. I mean,
you should qualify from everything I know. I mean, I helped you file your LLC, so I know. Yes, exactly. Yes, you qualify. So.
Prady's my lawyer, my legal rep. Everybody.
Yeah. So
let's
you
see. And then how long after? When will everybody know?
Well, they said initially that it should take 3 to 5 days to get to 10,000, but not a single person has gotten it yet. So that obviously didn't happen. So it should be within the next like 3 to 4 weeks. I think that's where probably we should start seeing it. I think that's where because first they're going to get all the applications. Then there's going to be a lot of people. I mean, this website's open to everyone. So everyone who like random people are going to sign up for it. I know people who ask me, I was like, dude, you don't qualify. What are you talking about? Like, well, I did babysitting once. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? No, you do not qualify for 10 grand. So
run back to the money.
Right. Well, yeah, I also want people to understand the gravity of this. Like there's a lot of businesses that are really struggling. So like, just ethically, don't start like taking stuff that is not for you. Like there's my personal request. Don't do that. There's people who really need it. And this is going to be exhausted. So like a lot of businesses, they'll probably need it and they won't have access to this stuff. And if you want to cut the line and take their money, you know,
Yeah, no, that's huge too. I can't imagine what other, like, for me, I feel like I was telling you, I needed this break in life, and but there are people who are really struggling. I can't imagine to be like, it's tough. I really hope that they qualify. They should sign up. They should.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope people reach out to us if they have questions. I've told everyone, like, just ask questions as much as you can. I know there's people who, like, maybe they're doing this the first time, or they're like, maybe they don't understand the laws properly. They don't have like friends in the area or like something they can ask, like, and they really need it. So I hope they reach out and they find a way out, because I think this is meant for them. So please don't abuse it. Like, that's just my one request.
Yeah. Or follow Prady on Instagram, because you do the good Q&As.
Yeah.
I follow you, man. It's really helpful for me too sometimes.
Yeah, we're also gonna do that the Enlightened Millennial Instagram. So at the Enlightened Millennial, follow us. We're gonna do a bunch of stuff there. I'm gonna repost a lot of stories. We're gonna do a lot of stuff there. So stay up to date on that.
Like these, like more educational slides like this too.
100%. Yeah. So now this loan, the question is, okay, so say for instance you get the EIDL, so like they're going to give you money. Now, how are you going to qualify for it? How much you're going to get? There's no like real guideline. They're going to just decide after you fill out the form. So again, people who go online on the website of the SBA, a lot of people have filled this one out. This is the EIDL that you filled out. You're going to get $10,000 as long as you qualify, but how much you get is basically up to them to decide. Say you get money now, right? You get like 50 grand or 100 grand. Okay. So $10,000, whatever, you don't have to, pay anymore. Now, what's the loan going to be for? It's 3.75% interest rate, and the payment can be deferred for 6 to 12 months. And I believe from most of the memos I've read, it's actually a year. So for a year long, you don't have to pay anything. A year later, you have to start, and the repayment is for 30 years. So it's a long time.
3.75 is, that's kind of a lot, no? Or no?
No, it's really good. So I think it's a really good loan. Also remember, like, a lot of time for these types of loans, you have to show a lot of stuff. Like, you have to show a lot of paperwork. They're trying to make it easier this time. They're not looking heavily on like credit rating and credit scores and asking a lot of paperwork. So usually most businesses probably wouldn't qualify that would this time. So, and I think if you get a good amount and you say you wouldn't really use it to build yourself up and you want to use it for other investments, which we'll get at the last slide, this might be a really good thing, because 3.75% isn't that high. I mean, a lot of mortgages are like 5%, some are higher. So getting a loan at this amount it can be pretty good, and it can be pretty helpful. So, and it's deferred for a year. You don't have to pay it up until a year later.
That's 12 months.
Yeah. So a lot of entrepreneurs that are always like trying to raise money, and then someone's taking equity from you, you don't have to worry about it. There's no equity. You own 100% of your business, and someone is giving you $20, $50, $60, $70,000, and you can pay it back later. And a year later, you probably are making profits, you're selling product, and 3.75% of that, you can probably just cover with all the money you've made over the year. So it could be a really good boost for a lot of businesses. That's what it's meant for.
And what about, I guess, so for us, we didn't really make a significant amount since we had our launch only late last year. It would be kind of, what would they look at? I mean, we don't have like a significant amount of income yet since we just
So they'll look at like, well, what's your usual like cost that you have on a monthly basis, and like they're gonna see whether they're gonna look at what you filed out. When you filled out the form, it asks you what are your cost of goods sold and what are your profit, like how much you make, and they're gonna look at that, and they're gonna make they have their own. They didn't explain to people exactly what they're gonna do for EIDL. They explained how to do the PPP. But they didn't explain the EIDL because it's just for working capital. Because the first thing they're concerned about is like, hey guys, pay your workers. Like, don't let people become unemployed, because America doesn't have an infrastructure for that, like at all, for unemployment. So so that's why the PPP is very specific. So you can calculate what you're going to get. Like, if you're a business, you know what you're going to get with the PPP. With the EIDL, it's a little bit up for play because they don't value working capital as much as they do for paycheck protection. So, and 25% of the paycheck protection you can use for working capital as well. So you can use that loan to do your overhead expenses. So this is just 75% needs to go for wages, 25% for working capital.
Why does it seem so? Is it flexible at all? Is this a flexible kind of?
Yes. EIDL is way more flexible. So you can use it for way more things. Whereas the PPP is really meant to keep workers, because they were afraid, like, they're like, okay, guys, like, here's the loan. And they're going to be like, well, what are businesses going to do? Are they just going to put it in their pocket? No, they're like, guys, you have to keep your staff. Like, if you start firing people, they look at how many people you have. And if you start firing people, you can't forgive. Your loan forgiveness gets reduced. So they want people to incentivize them. But the EIDL is way more flexible. But that's why it's a loan. It's not a grant. You're going to pay it back, you know?
Understood.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, this is always available during any times where it's a disaster, but like this time during this pandemic, they've made it and basically loosened the law quite a bit for this.
Yeah. The SBA has a lot of good info on this too.
Yeah. Yeah. I've obviously read their last memo. It's like 37 pages of pure text. So I think this is probably a little more condensed, but they should read that too. So,
You know, the benefit of this is, it's just perfect timing, because I was talking to you earlier. I was like, in my mind, how does Prady, like, how do you maximize your like performance in this? I mean, I would say not many people can just skim through this information and really just dissect and conclude on what's happening. Like, how does that work? Like, how do you get in the mode of really breaking down information? You know what I mean? And critically thinking about it, and then being able to translate and communicate it to that. So for people like me, like I'm like, what is going on now? Like, what am I qualified for? Like, what am I gonna do? And then, you know, you can just really. But I mean, what are some? You know that, right? You know that you're like above average at like translating and transcripts and all this stuff. You can transcribe anything. But I mean, what's a good productivity hack that you use, I guess?
yeah, I mean, I think as far as like digesting information, you have to learn to cut the clutter as soon as possible. If you start looking up online about all this stuff, you're going to get bombarded, you're going to get more confused. And that's what all the news, like stuff on the news, like a world event, I'm trying to understand it. I'm like, what is going on? And so what I did, the first thing I do always is try to be as pure to the source as possible. So I started reading when the first memos came out from the SBA itself. The SBA has published their own memo, and it's not the easiest thing to understand, but it's still better because it's legit. Like, that's what it is. So I always start with that. I read the section that I can understand, and then I started reading some opinions. But what I do is, like in this situation, I started calling a couple of accountants that I know, and I started calling my bank and the guys at work. I was like, can you explain this to me? And then we started having conversation. And the stuff that I didn't get, then that's where I go out and look online and look on Google for. But it's really important, even for today. Like, if we were talking about the PPP and EIDL generally for everyone, we would be here until like midnight. But like, focusing right now is like, I only care for gig economy workers and like small like entrepreneurs that are just starting with a startup. That's all we care about. I don't want to. If I see anything else, I was like, I close the tab. I don't want to read it.
Because I can imagine. I mean, there's so many people in the same boat as I right now. It's like, how do I really know what's true or not? But this is great. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll continue on this one again. Maximum term repayment you can pay this for 30 years straight. So it's a long loan that could be very beneficial depending on how you use it. Now, a big question people have is, well, can I just apply for everything? Like, can I apply for the EIDL and the PPP? The answer is yes, you can. And you should if you need it. But you cannot use both loans to double dip and use them for the same purpose. So if I'm using EIDL, they're going to ask you what are you using for. And then if you're using the PPP for the exact same term. Now, how they're going to check on oversight, I mean, I don't know, but it is, you know, the government, IRS, I mean, they know a lot of stuff, so I wouldn't do it. So don't use it for the exact same purpose. So the way I would look at it, if you need both loans, use the PPP for your wages, for your like income that you're not getting anymore, and use the EIDL for your working capital. So rent, utilities, overhead expenses, your car, whatever payments that you have that you can't do anymore, you know, stuff like that. That's where I would like use both. That's what they're actually meant for. And that way you can use the PPP and you're totally forgiven, and your overhead expenses, you know, take a loan for it. Or if you're really savvy and you don't need a lot of money, just go for the PPP, and then you get everything forgiven. You never have to pay anything back. That's another option. Or if you want to be more bullish, there's another option. Again, it gets confusing. You sign up for both, and then for the EIDL, you only take the 10,000. You say, I don't want any of the other stuff, and then you use the 10,000 that's forgiven, and the PPP is also forgiven. But it's really up to you how you want to play the card. So, and some people will just need so much money that they'll just have to take both fully.
Sure. Little glitch in the system, huh?
Yeah. So, can you now? Some people have asked about unemployment. I mean, most likely they haven't really said anything specific directly, but you probably cannot use PPP and unemployment. I mean, unemployment is for people who are like salaried workers and are getting laid off or something. And here you can't use both. Now, here's a big caveat for this as well. A lot of business owners, like say you have an LLC, say you have, you know, Green Solutionist or Flickr, and you guys are hiring like, I don't know, like designers, social media managers, like people that are, you're paying more than $600, right? Like it's just in contractors, right? People on Upwork. Now, some people have asked me, well, can I get money for those people because they're also my employees? The answer is no. You can only get money for your employees, not for your independent contractors, because your independent contractors have to apply themselves for it.
Understood.
So if I have a bunch, so right now, for instance, I have a company, like say I have ads and I have a bunch of independent contractors. Someone does my design work, someone does my social media. Say they're all independent contracts. Like everyone's independent contractor. Like if that was the case, like it was 2-3 years ago, I had a bunch of independent contracts. Someone was doing my logo, someone was doing my YouTube, whatever.
Right.
I couldn't go to my bank and say, hey, I have 4 people that I need to pay. I want my loan to be all these people that I'm paying. As the bank's gonna say, sorry, you can't do that. They have to come themselves and apply for it.
So it's not in a business's interest to not have employees, right?
Well, America wants you to have employees in your business because it means you're growing and you're creating opportunity, right? So you want employees because then you give them benefits and all that stuff. So, but again, now why did I mention that? Because if you're an independent contract, like a gig economy worker, or you're just doing stuff and you're like a graphic designer to make websites, can you apply for unemployment and the PPP at the same time? And the answer is probably not, because the PPP is also going to cover your wages and unemployment is also going to cover it. Right. Now, then you have to, and that's what I wanted to do here. You have to start thinking about when do you want to use each, and you got to be strategic about it. So the EIDL, you want to use for working capital, rent, mortgage payments, fixed debts, PPP for lost income, and unemployment you can also use for lost income. But here's the thing. Don't get confused. Do not get confused. Just go sign up for both. Go to the SBA's website, sign up there, fill out the form, go to your bank and do that too. And let them decide what they want to do and how much they want to give you. Again, this is not like a legal case that you have to make. It's just paperwork you have to give them, and then they're going to decide how much to give you. So don't get overly confused about it. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think about, because the other day we signed up for the EIDL, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, so the online thing is EIDL. That includes $10,000 in cash. That's totally forgivable, but the rest is not. The PPP is through your bank. It's a little bit harder to get because but it's purely for your wages mostly, and it's totally forgivable. So that's really how it's done. So you can use both EIDL and PPP. You can use both, but you want to be strategic. Once you get qualified for everything, you can make that decision then. It's not like you have to decide now, and then if you get it, you have to take. It's not how it works usually. You have an option. So just apply for both. If you really need it, apply for both. Unemployment, I'm not going to heavily cover it on this section because it's very state based. I think it's a very personal thing, and I don't think that's anything new. Whereas the PPP and EIDL is new for a lot of people, so that information is not readily available. So I didn't want to go on and on. I did want to quickly talk about additional relief, because one of the questions that you and I went over, well, what else? Like, what else do you get? Like, if you don't have any of this stuff, like, what else are you going to get? Well, if you are an adult right now and you make less than $75,000 annually, you're going to get a $1,200 one-time payment. It's going to be a direct deposit in your bank. You're going to get it.
How it just seems very generous to me. Like, it just seems so, here you go, everybody. What? But I mean, $1,200 may not last someone that long, especially if they have kids. I mean, I know they get an extra $500, right?
Yeah. So people with children get more. They get almost double that. But again, I focus here just on most of our crowd being like younger people who are not married yet. But again, think about it like you're gonna make $1,200 now. If you make more than $75K, so what does it mean you make more? Well, if you are an LLC and you take money out of your LLC, like your W-2, or it's coming on and you're taking that money, then it's going to be reduced by $5 for every $100 of income over 75. Again, it's just mathematics. Just look at a slide. We don't have to do math calculations here. But this is another form of relief you're going to get. There's a lot of questions. Well, how the hell is this even going to work? And what does that even mean? And I think that's really important here. The big thing that I have here about the pro tip and having a plan is like, okay, so now you get all this money. What are you going to do with it? So I think, yes, that's important, because like a lot of us are like so worried, man, I want this money. I'm going to get this direct deposit. First of all, how am I going to get this direct deposit? It might come through a check. Some people who have a direct deposit set up with the IRS already, like if you get money back, they already have your bank account. They're literally going to wire it to you. Like even on the $10,000 cash advance, they ask you for your bank account number. Yeah. So they're going to wire it to you straight. So that's how it's going to work. Again, I don't know the implementation of this because it's not happened in my lifetime before. So we'll have to see. how this actually plays out, like all this stuff. So we'll see. But the big pro tip, the one thing I want to talk to you about too quickly, because this is the Enlightened Millennial.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to have a plan. Like, what are you going to do with these funds? Because part of being an entrepreneur, or like a successful person, someone who's like very driven and cares about self-development, you see money not just like as something just to spend. You're thinking about investment, because we know mathematically, if you keep something in the bank account, it's just going to dwindle away, you know?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. For me, I'm thinking about like how I would play these cards, right? I mean, I remember just the other day when you said, because this summer we had a conversation about me trying to, like, how do you actually raise money, and how do you really get that going? And you're like, well, you asked for money, here you go. It's like a gift it's like a little gift or whatever. But I'm thinking about like, from what we need now, like how do we split it up, like manufacturing and actually getting, started in marketing? Like how do we allocate it, And it's a tricky situation for me, because we didn't generate enough revenue, and we just now got our first official employee. So how do we calculate that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, these are really good questions, and these are really fundamental questions you want to ask yourself, because we all know money goes away and it dwindles and it disappears. I mean, people are going to take this money, and even the people that don't have a business, they're going to get the $1,200 or the $2.5 grand, whatever they're going to get. And then what are they going to do? You're going to spend it on app. Like, what are you going to do? Right. Like, most people are not going to do anything much with it. There's some people who really need it, and they need that money. Okay. And then there's some people who don't really, really need it. And for those, even if you're a business owner, you get all these loans, think about what you're going to do. What's critically, think about how are you going to use it to sustain your business? Can you use it to grow your business? And also, what's the game plan you have if this happens again? Because I think a lot of people are kind of blindsided. We know on average in the United States, the SBA has calculated that most small businesses only have 16 days of cash available on hand to survive 16 days. So it's tough.
Brick and mortar?
Well, most small businesses, a lot of them are brick and mortar, yes, because like restaurants, coffee, like there's no one coming in those places. Like, what are they going to do? They got to pay rent. Like, it's a whole cascade. It's a very serious situation. So think about it. Like, you have to pay rent. There's no one coming in your store, and your landlord's like, I want the rent. Then the landlord also has to pay his mortgage or her mortgage. And so it's a whole shit show, a whole cascade. And the problem is, if the money doesn't come quickly, like, what's everyone going to do? So again, a big part of this is always, and I've always preached this, and I know you've preached this too, you got to be independent. You got to not bank on these things from happening. You got to bank that no one's coming to save you. So build a business that can last this stuff,
That's I was just thinking about this the other day. It's like, I feel so bad for these restaurants that are just failing. People will fail, right? I mean, it's a fact. People will really just go out of business and may never recover from this. Is that safe to say?
Yes. Yeah. There are going to be businesses that are not going to make it out of this.
So I was like, I was like, that is terrible. But then I'm like, I look at my life and how I set up, my safety fund, and how I have everything. Just, I'm okay. Like, I'm actually thriving. I needed this time to generate my own momentum into our own business. And I don't know. I just to what you said, it's being prepared for a rainy day, and being prepared with at least 6 months or whatever, however much your lifestyle cost. How much wealth did you generate? That's the simplest thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
lifestyle design, and like living lean, and just, I'm good. I was thinking about this. Like, people have a car payment. I was like, because I own my truck, and I was like, I just started driving, and then my roommate, she was like, her friend has like a $500 car payment, and I was like, wow, and then she has like $1,100 rent, right. So for someone who's like 25 or 26, it's really tough. But yeah, be prepared.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time where you see like all the small things Leo and I talk about on the Enlightened Millennial, they pay off. This is, I mean, who could have expected this could happen? No one did. But what you can expect is that you can always expect that you're going to be by yourself, and you can always expect that the best case scenario is to be well prepared. That's what you can always expect. So like, not spending your money on stupid shit. Like, if you're like, man, I can't sustain my business, I have an online business, I have an Amazon store, but like, you have no money even to build yourself out. A lot of people don't have money to build themselves out. And so if you have a e-com business or something, like, well, what did you spend your money on? So now you're like, oh man, all this nights of drinking, going out, partying, like, this is the money you could have used to save your business, but now it's gone. So hopefully thinking better about in the future, like always having cash reserves That's what's going to win. I mean, so many people ask me, Prady, what's the best stocks to invest in? Like, what's this? I always tell them, there's three things I tell them. Number one, you got to go into a business where there's a big market demand. Okay, that we all know that there's a big market demand. We got to go. The second and third is the most important for this type of stuff. Which businesses have the most cash on hand? Cash is king, has been king forever, because cash is going to keep you sustained when banks are going to pull out their loans, and you have cash on hand. You can survive. You can survive this stuff. Everyone who has cash right now has savings. They're going to make it. They're going to make it through the next, whenever the peak happens, they're going to make it through. So cash is king. So businesses that have cash on hand are going to be the ones that are going to make it out of it. And then businesses that are not overly leveraged, businesses that take a lot of loan, a lot of debt, because at some point what can happen is banks are going to be like, hey, I want to pull my money out. Like, give me my money back. All creditors, I want my money back, because they need money too. Like, all those companies are going to really collapse. So building a business that's as close as possible to be debt free, but also having cash on hand. And for a lot of businesses, it's tough, but for a lot of like solo businesses who we're talking to, it's also like a lot of like millennials who are, going every night out and doing stupid shit. I mean, those alcohol stuff could save you. Like, seriously, I know it could be a matter of a few $1,000s, $4 or $5, $6 grand, 10 grand that you've probably spent. I mean, it's a fact, right? So, and I know it doesn't, but that's stuff that could have saved your business too. And relying right now on the government to bail you out, I know we all need it and we're going to apply for it, but also think about, I would do the following. I'm doing the following right now. I'm like, okay, what I'm going to do with this money? How I'm going to pay all the people that, work for me, work in the business, what I'm going to do. That's that's the number one priority for me, taking care of everyone. Number two is like, okay, what am I going to do if I have extra cash available? How am I going to use it to sustain my business further? Like, what are the plans for growth? And third, immediately, I'm also thinking, man, if this happens again, what am I going to do in the future? Why was I fine? And, you had all these guys predicting a recession. Gary Vee used to always talk about it. He kept like, dude, I have cash everywhere. He talks about that. And this is it. Like, this is that moment. We don't realize it. Like, this is that moment. So businesses that have cash can survive this. And so always think about having an extra reserve of cash. And if for you, and again, I'm not talking about small business owners that have a small mom and pop store or like cafes or restaurants that are really struggling. I'm talking to our audience, side hustlers, e-com guys and girls and people who have smaller business, who sell products, who sell lighters, who sell supplements. A lot of that money is like, man, you can bail yourself out because you have your own cash reserve,
I'm thinking about how applicable this is, like, or how I can move like just in the future, like we're not rebounding from anything. I'm just thinking about how to adapt along with the situation and how we could best leverage it. And we'll talk about this, at a different time, but
for sure,
it's just so all new, and it's uncertain in a way, you don't know how long everything's going to last for, but it's interesting stuff, man.
But see, for a business, it means like, we talked about one of the episodes we did in East Boston. We did was a nice waterfront, and we talked about the concept of wealth and money. And we said one of the definitions of wealth is how long can you survive when there's no income coming in? That's like wealth, right? And so if you think about it, do you have enough saved up not in your personal, but in your business also to survive for like a month or 2 months or 3 months? Can you beat the average of 16 days? That's the first start. And so the answer is no, you should work towards that. It's a good thing to save. And then whether it's to save more on stuff that you don't need, or it's to change your pricing model or your business model. A lot of people who, what's happening in the supplement space, for instance, a lot of people have business models with net 30, which means that your retailer orders from you and they only pay you net 30 days later. Now, guess what's happening? You have sent all your product to your retailers and retailers like, I can't pay you. Now you're totally of cash. So maybe it's time to reevaluate your business models too. How do you do business with people? What are the relationships you set? What are your terms you set? Because this is all about timing and having enough saved up and being very surgical with your cash. So maybe it's time to change your business model. Like, this is how far I want people to think about when it happens the next time. Why are you out of money if you are a e-com business or like a business owner that we talk to? And it might be because you're not surgical with your expenses. So think about that. And I think that's really good no matter where you are in your business career. I always think about that. I'm like, I need a cash reserve always to build my own company out. You need to have that.
That's key. What you said, being very surgical in your operations in a way. And
yes,
it's funny because we the new guy we hired, Chris. You'll meet him. He's a good dude.
Yep.
He I asked him. Remember that book, Good to Great? Good to Great, the book.
Yep.
Anyways, there's a concept in there called the hedgehog concept. Anyways, I asked him to kind of answer the question around what that really means, and we'll talk about it another time. And one of the questions was like, what can Flickr be the best at? And then understanding that, but also what is Flickr not so good at? And he was being brutally honest. He was like, operations are shitty or something like that. It just like, I took it to heart in a way, but you always, and the book also said, you have to really accept brutal hard facts, of course, and that's just the way it is. God, what was the point? But no, just being efficient with your operations, and that's
Yeah.
that's what you're talking
100%. Yeah. Knowing your numbers, knowing everything, change your relationships, think about all that stuff. Think about, man, if this happens again, it could very well happen again. I mean, so then what are you going to do? So thinking about that, I think it's so important. I mean, that's the one big learning lesson, like, cause like when we talk to other businesses, consult other businesses, we're so focused on like, oh, what are your probably this? How many people are talking about, hey, do you have cash reserves? Like in times of like problems, like we don't talk about that, but these are the unsexy things in life that are going to get you ahead. And that's very important. We talk about, I do consulting and help out a lot of businesses. And most of the time, the businesses that get ahead are they just took more precautions, and it's not like they have any growth hacks. They're not brilliant minds that are like, Simon Sinek or like brilliant people walking around with like cool growth hacks. They're just regular people, but they got their shit together.
It's funny you bring him up. I wanted to talk about him real quick because he was addressing like just COVID and the circumstances, and he was like, and these times are not really unprecedented. He said these times of uncertainty have always happened.
True.
And it's just about more of like how, like, I wrote it down, man. It was so good. Oh, right here. Oh, he said, actually, don't ask yourself, how do we do what we are doing? He says, how will we do what we're doing better in a different world?
Correct. Yep.
So that's like kind of how to go about changing, use these 30 days to do that. So think about your life, think about your business like this in the same way. Think about how you will live your life or, run your business in a different world. And, I mean, you can probably talk about this maybe in a different episode, but like, e-commerce kind of delivery, booming now, and having that whole movement, and virtual and Zoom and the potential of that. I mean, that's huge, man. I mean, think about it. You're literally creating communities with it.
Yeah. And so this is a big question. Like when I said, what kind of businesses should you invest in? I said, businesses that have big market demand. We can see essential businesses now. Like we never knew, like, what is actually essential? Like, what do people really need? Because we don't know. We know the old economy, we need like transportation and food and water, but in the digital economy, like we've never seen this type of like panic and like people really being quarantined. So now we can see, what do people need in the digital world? And in the digital world, we see it now. We need food delivery. We need internet connection. We need streaming services. Like, so it's a good idea for like, for a lot of entrepreneurs watching. They're like, I listen to Enlightened Millennial. I love what Leo is doing. Look at Leo, man. He changed his life. Like at Prady, he's doing some cool stuff. And they want to be like Leo, and they want to start. And they're like, what kind of business should I start? Like, cause you just started like really hitting the ground running like a year ago. And so they want to do it like you did, and they don't know where to start. Like, look at the businesses that are doing that now, doing well now. Those are the businesses that are quote unquote recession proof. We know that now. Like we have proof now. Like it's not conjecture. Because if you told me like 10 years ago, well, video calling is going to be like I was like, maybe, I don't know. I know like shelter is and real estate is, but video calling, I don't know. But now we know like video calling and connectivity matters.
Do you think it also, this is a test for employees or just people to find the discipline to work on their own too? Because office politics, sometimes you are there 8-9 hours, but do you really work 8-9 hours? Probably not, right? So is it a test for work cultures to like really show that, all right, I can get whatever I need to get done in like a day or 2 days? And then, because I was listening to this podcast this morning, actually, it was like, are we really going to see workplaces decline? Are we going to see, are companies going to realize, well, do we actually need this as an expense? Can we just downsize on that? Or I think there's something else too, but that was the main thing.
Yeah, no, but it's a good question. I think the answer should always be, you should do whatever in your power to always be free and to not be not dependent on the government, not dependent on your parent, not dependent on friends. No one should be able to, you shouldn't rely on anyone to bail you out. And if you put yourself in that position, like you're going to be in a good spot in your life. So like doing a side hustle or making more income is like, it's not about being a side hustler and you liking entrepreneurship. It's about freedom. That's really what it is about. It's about freedom and having no one to, like, if you work for someone right now and it's really shitty times and they're not a good employer and like, you're going to be squeezed out. Now you're totally at the mercy of them. What are they going to do? Are you going to keep us? Are you going to furlough us? Like, what are you going to do? No,
Right.
Okay, you don't want me? I'm good. I got my own stuff too. I have saved up for my side hustle. I have an Amazon business, and guess what? I'm still crushing it there. So like, this is less about being a great entrepreneur. I don't want people to think about, oh, I have a side hustle means I need to be the next like Bill Gates. It's not what it's about. It's about
Absolutely.
freedom. There's different types of entrepreneurships. And entrepreneurship for me is freedom. It's not necessarily about being the next Mark Zuckerberg. For me, I see it as like, oh, this person is entrepreneurial means they care about their freedom. Now, how big they want to take it, that's a different concept, right? Some people want to go all out and some people don't. But I think it's always good when people work towards their freedom, because at the end of the day, when shit hits the fan, that's all you got. And if you're totally at the mercy right now, I mean, I go out right now and I got to, oh shit, what did the governor say today? I got to listen to that. What did the mayor say? I got to listen to that. I
Yeah.
was like, dude, now what does my employer say? I got to listen to that. Like, I'm
Mhm.
totally like relying on these people, and that sucks. So
Mhm.
you don't want to feel like that. So at least financially, you're like, okay, I'm safe, and that's good.
That's really relatable to me. You're really that you speak to me in a way because for the audience listening, I have literally 3 forms of income. Now, are they like crazy like flowing income streams? No, not really. But I always like when Encore closes down, I still have my
Yes.
moving gig. I still have Flickr that people are still ordering from. People are bored at home. They want to order. You know what I mean? They want delivered. Even better. I'll just
Yeah.
drive it over. So I'm literally good. I still have income every
Good.
week. Now, is it super strong? As strong as it possibly can be? How it will be? No. But this is the same thing. Like it's really about um, using. You're not screwed. You're not.
Yes.
You're independent, and you didn't give that up to a different like a. There's nothing wrong with that though. Because I still love the Encore. I still love my 9 to 5, but it's always it's a safety precaution. It's just a safety net for yourself. It's also like you have a 9 to 5, and then you have your passion in a way. And you hopefully you built up your passion in a way that it is self-sustaining.
Yeah. I mean, Leo, it's really a question: who holds the cards to your life, man? Who holds all the cards to your life? You
You
have a
always
certain
gotta
amount
go
of
deep.
cards, right? So
You
you
always gotta
want,
go deep.
sorry?
You always gotta go deep on it, huh?
Well, wait,
Nobody's
I mean, yeah, but it's like, who holds all the cards to your life? Like, I would rather me hold it for myself. Like, that's how I am as a person. And I think that's how everyone should be. And it comes from deep confidence, because I feel like I know what's best for my future. Some people don't feel that way. They think it's better to delegate that away. I don't believe that. I think I want to hold all the cards to my life as much as I can. And one of those cards, there's health, there's emotional, personal. One
Oh
of
yeah.
them is financial. That's the financial card. And who holds that really?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should hold that. Everyone should work towards holding that themselves, because as long as you're financially independent, no one has leverage over you. No one can trample over you. No one can treat you like shit. No one can, squeeze you by the balls. Like, a lot of respect and stuff, and the ability to walk away, which to me means is power. That happens with financial freedom, and it doesn't have to be that you're a multi-billionaire, but being able to, what, I don't like the situation. I'm okay. It's okay for me to walk. That can only happen if you're financially free. Otherwise, you can't walk. You have to tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
Always tolerating. I'm tired. No, I'm tired of tolerating. I don't want to
Yeah.
tolerate anything, right? I'm all right now. I told you, like, one of the things I hate now, there's a curfew. Now there's this. I can't tolerate that. I don't like it. Now I will follow it because I believe it's a good thing to practice all that stuff, and it's good. But I don't want to keep tolerating that, because after COVID-19 is over, people are no longer going to be like, oh man, I'm going to be so free. I'm going to be going out to. I was like, are you? Will you though? No, you won't. Like, you'll just go back to another place where you're totally, now your boss is going to tell you what to do all day. So now it's not the governor, and now it's your boss. So just think of that. Like, are you really going to be free after this just because you can go to the playground and you can go to the clubs? Like,
Yeah.
think about that. I think I want people to become like, really go into this spiritually, mentally, to think about what this COVID-19 has done, is giving you a stop time, frozen time, but also start, turning your wheels and like, man, like,
True.
man, so many people have power over me. Does not feel good,
And also, but in this landscape, it's very very possible for you to realize your passion. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
My roommate, she was sick before COVID-19. She didn't actually have it, but she was sick before. She was
Yeah.
out of work for 2 weeks. She didn't get paid, and then COVID hit, and she got laid off. Also, no pay. So she started freaking out. She didn't have any rent to pay. She didn't have money to pay rent, and she was so creative that she started making these, what do you call it, like mixed media collages
Yeah.
and started selling them to other people, and she made like $500 in like a weekend or something. And I was so proud. I texted her like, that's great, because and this goes back to what I said a while ago, was sometimes you either act because you're inspired by something, or sometimes you act because you're very desperate and you need to, like, if you don't change your situation, then, you know, then that's it. You're going to end up on the street. And that, in her case, it really pushed her to start her, because we were talking about this the other day. She was like, oh, I don't know if I should go back to school or not. And I was like, are you sure it's worth going into debt? 50K, 60 at least? Why? Just, so anyway, so now she's kind of, I think she was kind of pushed into, she found the way to do what she really likes to do. And actually, and I told her, like, I'd talk about all the things that we talk about. And I was like, you just have to, now more than ever, she made an Instagram page, started posting about it. She has people were sharing it. I mean, she puts a price on it. You know, of course I buy from her because you know, you have to support your friends, of course. So anyways, I mean, if she can do it, if I can do it, then anybody who's listening and watching, you can do it.
Yeah, that's a really good, really good message. We should get her on the show, man. That's great to say
Yeah,
a few
for
words.
sure.
Say a few words. Yeah, I want to you know, end this, and I think from both of us, it's and I put the last slide. This is your turn. So that's really what this is about. It's always about, EM is never about like preaching. I will say that it's about, we give you perspective, and then it's your turn. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with all these loans? Are you going to act on it? Are you going to use it creatively? Is it going to change your business? Even if you don't get a lot of money from it, like, use this as like an exercise for like, okay, I know how to process information, how to act quickly. Maybe it's the first few times you're dealing with the situation. That's, you know, from a legal and like tax perspective, that's good. Maybe you're brushing up on things you weren't before, but like, this is your turn. And that's how I want to end. This is your turn now. Like, it's the ball's in your court. And that's how we always end, Leo and I. You know, we love doing this. I know it's late Sunday night, and we wanted to do this. And I spend a few hours, and Leo and I are spending hours doing this together here because we care. And we're providing all this information. It's very hard to find because we care about you guys and we want you guys to succeed. You know, that's the parting message from my end always, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well said. This is for everybody's knowledge, for mine, for yours, and special times for sure. A special thanks. Let's definitely thank the doctors that are out there. I don't mean to be cheesy or anything, but even the essential workers, people working at like
100%.
UPS and gas stations, and still out there. I mean, now they're saying put on a mask or don't put on a mask, whatever. But it's like it's pretty serious, I would say. I was a skeptic at first, and the podcast I was listening to earlier today, the guy was a skeptic before too, and then he releases yesterday. He's like, all right, I take what I said back. But you know, be safe, be healthy, and you know, if you have a chance to say thank you to a doctor or a public service worker, do so. You know,
do it. Yeah, absolutely. We're super grateful. And obviously this is a
follow
real
us.
thing, and
Follow us on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Your first time tuning in to us. This is what Leo and I do. We provide a ton of value, and we have really deep conversations. We talk about self-development, success, hacking your brain, hacking your mind, just being a person of value. We want you to listen to this, apply it to your life, and look in the mirror and say, man, I'm a different person. You feel better. You walk better. You think better. You eat better. You sleep better. That's what Enlightened Millennial is about. We want you to be truly feeling enlightened. There's no other feeling that will beat that. It's not about material possessions. It's like, I feel good. I feel like enlightened. I feel like I have a different perspective. For me, that's always been the biggest reward. Like, I'm going through information, I'm helping people, I'm providing value through business or whatever it is, through service. That's enlightened. That's being an enlightened millennial. And that's the biggest gift that I think we can all give to everyone.
And what I gotta say, one of the biggest gifts Prady can give the world for productivity and brain hacking, obviously. You came out with a new product. I don't mean to plug you in here, but Prady came out with a new product. It's called Total Focus. Check it out. I gotta say, dude, I'm not saying that just to be nice, but I think this is it. I mean, you did pretty good with this one. I like it.
Yeah, we put in a lot of effort on this. We are gonna do an EM episode, and I'd like to talk about like the whole story behind like making Total Focus and all the crazy stuff that went behind it. There's a lot to it. And then we want to hear more about Flickr and what your business is doing. But yeah, for everyone else, stay tuned. Again, first time tuning in, you gotta subscribe to the podcast. This is some really good stuff, and I think that people will get a lot of value from it.
Absolutely, man. Hey, well, I'll see you soon, and everybody be safe out there.